Yeah.
Okay, can you guys all hear me? Yes? Okay, I'm getting some head shaking. So hello, my name is Sarah Wilson. I'm the Executive Director of the St. Joseph Museums, and one of our museums is the Glore Psychiatric Museum. And we are joined today by Megan Wyeth, who is a local photographer who grew up in St. Joseph, and who has also come and helped us curate an exhibit about the internationally known artist Arthur Kraft. The reason we wanted to do, well, one of the many reasons why we wanted to do this exhibit was because Arthur Kraft had a good connection to the state hospital that was here in St. Joseph, which is one of the main topics of the Glore Psychiatric Museum. Arthur Kraft had stayed as a patient in the 1970s at the state hospital here in St. Joseph, and had created a book about his experiences that's called Sounds of Fury. He talks about some of the patients and the workers that were at the state hospital at that time while he was visiting here. And he also had a close connection to Megan's family. So I'm going to turn the program over to Megan because she is really the expert here, and I can't wait to hear her share with you what she knows about Arthur Kraft, his artwork, his life, and her personal connection to him. So Megan, please go ahead and take it away.
Hi, I'm Megan Wyeth, and I helped to curate the exhibit at the Glore Museum about Arthur Kraft because I did know Arthur. And I wrote something just to read to give you a background about Arthur. And then we'll look at some photographs and have questions. So I just want to begin by saying that Arthur M. Kraft was born in 1921 in Kansas City, Missouri. He lived there most of his life, except for the time that he spent in service during World War II and a short period in New York City. His first formal training in art came from Saturday morning classes at the Nelson Gallery of Art. He studied at Kansas City Art Institute, then went to School of Fine Arts at Yale University in 1946 to finish his degree. He began his career as an illustrator for major New York magazines such as Fortune, Time, and Ladies' Home Journal. Arthur was an artist that could create in any medium. He made oil paintings, watercolor paintings, drawings, and sculpture from clay and metal, but he is also known for large mosaics and stained glass. He was a diverse and fascinating artist. His work has been shown in many cities around the world and in the United States. Many of his sculptures are large-size creations, such as a 10-ton laughing elephant at a Detroit shopping center. There are 3 penguins on the Country Club Plaza in Kansas City titled The Court of Penguins, and a trio of walruses in Cleveland weighing 400 pounds each. Kraft won several awards for his paintings and exhibited in many prestigious galleries, such as the Schlegel Gallery in New York City, where critics referred to his uncanny talent. In 1954, he was named by the Junior Chamber of Commerce as one of the 10 top outstanding young men in America. He shared that honor that year with contemporaries such as Robert Kennedy and Chuck Yeager. Thomas Hart Benton once said of Kraft's early work, "He has better technique than I do if he'd only work harder at it." But Kraft did work hard. He sometimes painted for 17 to 18 hours a day. I met Arthur when I was 6 years old. I was affected by him and his kindness and warmth, and I very much liked his art. At the time, I thought blue belonged to him and that maybe he even invented it. He made so many blues and each were so brilliant. I remember checking my largest made crayon box to see how many blues were in it and if any of the colors matched Arthur's. For Arthur, color was natural. It was just part of him. He was able to think past the idea of a color and produce the nuance of a color. He intuitively knew as color changed, the entire experience changed. Arthur's art evokes emotions of every kind. His lines are alive and electric, and some look like barbed wire. But some are smooth and curved, and although they appear loose, they are intentional and powerful. Arthur struggled with trauma, health problems, and alcoholism. He spent 5 weeks in the alcoholic ward at the St. Joseph Hospital in 1971. During his stay there, he would slip away from his area and make contacts with patients. He was deeply affected by his experience and compassionate towards their situations. He created a series of sketches and stories about the patients that he was in contact with and created a limited edition book titled Sounds of Fury, which is the title of the exhibition. He wanted to help somehow. Arthur didn't feel some of the patients needed to be there and some were not treated well. He felt many patients just needed family or love. Also out of his stay at the hospital came other significant works, including large oil paintings of his impressions of my family farm. My father would pick him up on the weekends and drive him to the farm where we had a cabin, and he would drop him off, and just so Arthur could take a break from the hospital and paint. Arthur said the hospital experience heightened his sensitivities and that he learned to be more compassionate and would always listen to people with problems. What he was able to accomplish and maintain throughout his suffering was truly amazing. But what was the cause of Arthur's mental imbalances and alcoholism? Was it trauma from serving in World War II? Was it from being severely beaten one night in Kansas City just for his wallet? Was it the poor health he struggled with over many years? Was it stress from being a closeted gay man? There were many struggles for Arthur, but his work remained his anchor, and throughout, he kept his sense of humor. He was kind and generous and had a tremendous amount of whimsy about him, according to his friends. Arthur passed away in 1977 from cancer. Let's see, Sarah, should we go ahead and, any questions so far, or should we go ahead and start with some slides so you can see his wonderful work?
I think we can go ahead and go with the slides, Megan.
Okay, that would be for Sarah Parks. Is she there, Sarah?
Yeah, she's just, give her a second, she'll get it up going for you.
The exhibit is still showing at the St. Joseph Museum and the Glore Psychiatric Museum, and I believe it will be open until July 16th. So I'm showing a lot of the paintings and some of the drawings from the exhibit, but not everything, because you can go see it and it's worthwhile to see it. I'm really proud of it. It looks wonderful, and it's just a taste of a little bit of what this fantastic artist was about. So perfect. Oh, there it is. So Arthur Kraft, Sounds of Fury. And I was the guest curator for this. And like I said, it closes July 16th, so there's still time. And Sarah, we can go to the next slide. Arthur said a lot of really wonderful things about art and about life. He was just as much about life as he was about art, and that made his art so strong. So truly, this quote, "Truly the forces for bad are as strong as the forces of good. It revolves around such simple emotion as love, laughter, and whimsy, but the most important one of these is love." Arthur Kraft. Sarah, next slide. This is a fantastic painting, and you can't really tell in the slide how large it really is, and I don't know the exact dimensions, but I would guess that it's at least 6 feet long, and it's on loan from the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art in St. Joseph. And a word about the Albrecht Kemper is that they, in their collection, they have really many, many pieces of Arthur Kraft's art. I would say that they have more than any other museum in the Midwest. But this is the beginning of showing, he painted in gem tones, and everything was so alive. His art was alive, like I was saying about his lines. Everything had energy. Next slide. This is a wonderful piece on loan from a private collector in Kansas City. And I'm not sure of the size of this either, but it's pretty large. I would want to say maybe 4.5 feet long. And you can see several different blues just in this painting. And he was just very sensitive to color, how he made it. He was a color genius. It just came naturally for him. I think we can go to the next slide, but if I'm asking to change the slides too fast, someone let me know. Okay, this painting is fantastic. It's on loan from the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art. Sarah Wilson and I both immediately wanted this painting to be in the exhibit because it really looks like a man in a straitjacket. And, but the title is Jesse James, and I don't know where that came from, but it's part of the show. And then you can see how the blues are green, and the blues are blues, and the greens are blues, and it's just very interesting. Here's another example of Arthur's blues. For some reason, I'm not seeing that I have the titles of some of these paintings, but this is also on loan from the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art. So you can tell already that their collection is diverse, and it really is extensive. But another example of the paintings evoke emotion, they have movement, they're brilliant in color, everything. Looks like a maypole, but it looks like a ship, but it looks like the ocean, and I see a fish, and you can, it's so much fun when you look at a piece of art and you can all of a sudden say, I see this and I see that. Well, this is one of those paintings where I even see a dolphin in this painting. I see an upside down whale. So I love this painting, and another example of so many blues. Sarah, you can go to the next one. So this is just a photograph of one of the walls in the exhibit. And on the top, we first I'm gonna show you a picture of the book that. Oh, okay. Thank you, Megan Benz. Yes, the very large piece that I showed you first, the large painting. It's called "Gypsies in a Jeweled Forest," I think. This is, and I hope y'all can see it. This is the book that Arthur produced from his stay at the St. Joseph Hospital. And, oops. Inside there's colored pages, and there's prints of oil paintings that he made. And most importantly, he made sketches of the patients that he was in contact with at the hospital. And then he would write about them, his impressions of them, what he thought they were thinking. And this book even has a beautiful peacock feather in it. So here's a painting, if you can see that. And so I wanted to show you this, and we can go back to that, back to the slide that we were just looking at. Okay, so we took some of the pages from the Sounds of Fury book, and we blew them up, and we put them on the cabinets in the exhibition room, along with the writing that Arthur wrote about the patient. So there's several that go across the room, but I didn't want to show them all because I want you to go see the exhibit. But it's very emotional, and Arthur was trying to help these people. He was trying to make people aware of what was happening. Okay, and down in the right side corner is a painting, and I do not know the title of it, but it's oil. And the one next to it belongs to me, and it's a watercolor that Arthur made for my parents. And it says "To Marian Allen" in the corner of it. And the sketchbook, you can see, I really wish that we could have shown more pages of his sketchbook, but that sketchbook is also on loan from the Albright Kemper Museum of Art. And it's really fantastic. And the little painting on the left, it looks like a person inside of a TV box. I really feel like that painting is a little bit of gouache and a little bit of watercolor, either that or heavy watercolor. But Arthur made that for me. And I feel like that my parents and I were at his apartment in Kansas City when he made that for me. And I think that we were joking about TV. And that was one of the great things about Arthur for me, that when I was young, he didn't just talk to the older people, he would talk to the kids in the room too. And he was very much able to communicate with me and listen to me. And there were three main reasons why I wanted to become an artist, like events in my life that led to me becoming an artist. And knowing Arthur was definitely one of them. He would talk to me about color. He offered to teach me how to paint. And one day when he was at our house in St. Joe, he made this little sketch for me. And it says, "Did not mean to eat the cat. Love to Meg, Arthur Kraft." Arthur was just fun to know. Even when you were young, he was fun to know. And let's see. Okay, so we can go to the next slide. And so much of his work was about kings and queens and crowns and jewel tones and animals and fantasy. He just made up in his head what he wanted to express. I think we can move on to the next one. This is a painting, and I believe the title is Preening Duncan. And it's a smaller painting, but you can see how Arthur used color to create movement and excitement. You can use line to create that. You can use line to evoke emotion, but you can use color to create excitement and evoke emotion or not. You can use color and line to create quietness. But I like what he says here. Let us have no more big paintings with cold, straight lines. We need opulent extravagance with luminous colors, gem-like hues, and lots of reverse curves. It's perfect. On loan from the Albright Kemper. I think we can move on. And this is an example of one of the patient sketches in his book. And I won't read the whole writing, but I'll read part of the writing for this. It says, "I am authority. I have no allegiance to anyone. I have nothing but pride. I give pills, sugar cured. No one easily speaks to me. They are afraid of me. I am the law, not for my clever brilliance, but because the rest are stupid. I keep them stupid. I feel good that way. I care to help. The clumsy make me uneasy. They are right to fear me. I find it effective to keep water away from them. One has to be firm yet compassionate with those who will not conform to my structure of the status quo. One must be dedicated no matter how much energy is required to care for these put in my charge. In reality, we truly need each other. I feel deeply rewarded by helping those to accept us as a part of life. To me, it is a blessed opportunity to see their progress back to reality. Sometimes the path is thickly overgrown with weeds, each one a single knife blade, but I accept my appointed task cheerfully in the knowledge that adjusted human beings are the result. My patients love me. You can move to the next slide. Let's see if I can find that, this one. I can't read this one on the screen for some reason. So I'm trying to find it in the book. Darn it. Oh, well. I think it says, I was high and wide and flowing to an island shore. White tide cast up on a wooden raft. I was battered sore. Probably should move to the next slide. Oh yes, this one. My name is Elvira. I do a great deal of good. Sometimes my heart trembles when I am alone. I dislike laughter in the day, or any time for that matter. I am powerful. I can hurt them with my sarcastic tongue, covered with a toothy, jagged smile. I am not old. I am young and beautiful, and I am their superior. I am proper. They say I am hollow, but I have much compassion for these unfortunate human things. I do a great deal of good. This elates my innermost feelings. So far, the two that I have read are about the nurses. You can see the keys hanging over her neck. And so let's move to the next one and see if we can hear from the patients. Having trouble with the book today, of course. I'm seeing other ones in here that I'd like to show you. Nettie simply called him the accident. Fred was a calm, nice person, very easy to get along with, always willing to help. Yet there were certain days when he kept to himself. He had a congenital fear of heights. At one time, he had been a successful flyer in a great circus. Swinging on a trapeze, he had attempted to do a triple reverse somersault. Unfortunately, he missed the return. The band bravely played on, and no one really knew what had happened. Years later, he came to the hospital. He just could not adjust to this new life. Nettie was a strong force in his life. He spent many hours retelling the stories of the past. I think that Nettie had a bit of envy about him. He still had grace and color. Without the life he loved, he had little to interest him. To take away the circus was to take away his life. His memories kept him alive. You can go to the next slide. I think this is Nettie. Yes. I first encountered her on the elevator. She talked nervously about high fashion, how fickle it had been, her important position in that world, and how many of her designs had been stolen, her detailing plagiarized by rivals, the agony of creativity, her family affairs, the tragedy of economic insecurity in the fashion world. The secrets of an opening of a collection entailing the heady, perfume, canopies, combined with wine, the brilliance of prismatic jewels flashing in the afternoon sunlight, the hollow of, can't read his writing, Paris domination, the strange paradox of mannequins who are discarded as easily as they are clothed. She hated her clients, all the false facade of that world. Her name was Nettie, and she originally came from Eudora, Oklahoma. She was a lost soul, but she managed to give the appearance of a little style with a red blanket that she clutched as if her life depended upon it. I learned much from her about the other people who were there. Dear Nettie, I wonder where she is now. You can go the next slide. Okay, so this is, the title of this is Sunflower, and it's 48 inches by 48, and it belongs to me. It's one of the paintings that Arthur made at my farm while he was hospitalized in St. Joseph. And you can move to the next slide. This is titled Corn. It's 28¼ inches by 48¼ inches. And it's also one of the paintings that Arthur made on my family farm during the time he stayed at the hospital. You can move forward. This is titled Thistle. It's 30¼ inches by 60¼ inches. It was made during the time he stayed at the hospital at my family farm. And there's one more. Oops. There should be another one before that. No? I don't know. The other one was the hay painting, and it's really nice. But I have 4 of these paintings, and I know my sister has one of a rose, and I think there's one in the book. And I believe there were 8 altogether, and I don't know where the rest are. So you can move forward. So I wanted to show this. This is a very large mosaic that Arthur made, and it's in danger right now. The building's been sold. The person who bought the building, I believe his intentions are to tear down the building, and so no one really knows the future of the mosaic. But it's in downtown Kansas City. It's near the Sprint Center. I am not positive, but I believe it used to be the Board of Education building. But I know 2 people. One person that I know, his father helped Arthur put this mosaic together. And the other person I know, her brother modeled as the young boy for the mosaic. So you can move forward to see some details. Yeah, there's my friend's brother there. His name, I think, was Mark. But you can just see what an enormous project this must have been. And it's brilliant. And to me, it should absolutely be a top priority to save this piece. You can move forward for more detail. In this photograph, you can see some of the detail of each mosaic piece. And the lily is just fabulous in this. And again, he stays with his, gem tone colors. And he even has shadows on the pants in the mosaic. It's truly one of the most amazing pieces of art that I know of. Okay, move forward. And this is a detail. And maybe there's a couple of more slides, one more. And you see the crack down this detail. The mosaic was done in sections. And so I believe this crack is an indication of the connecting of a couple of sections. And there's people that believe and would like to try to remove this from the building because they believe that they might be able to take it off in sections. And I certainly hope that someone's able to do that someday. Okay, move forward. My father really supported, my mother and father really supported Arthur's talents, and my father would hire him to do work in advertising for his company. My father was a feed manufacturer in St. Joe, and my father had a line of dog food. And so Arthur made 6 or 8 of these sketches of pen and inks of dogs. This is the poodle, for his dog food advertising. And I think, is that the last slide? Yeah, so I just wanted to show, and this, I didn't get to show any of the metal sculptures or anything. Most everybody here has probably seen the penguins on the Country Club Plaza, but he could absolutely do anything, and it all came from his mind. And in the beginning of his art career, his style was a little bit different than it was in the end. And you can also tell when you look at his work that when he was having struggles with his health or alcoholism, you can tell that his art changed during some really difficult times. And I'm not saying for the worse, I'm just saying that his art changed. But Arthur was religious, he was spiritual, Arthur was about love. And even though he was struggling, he was really about love in people. And I think it came through in his colors and his art. And my father wrote back and forth with Arthur throughout the years. I have the correspondence, and so I know some of his struggles. And my father would have people from his office drive paints and masonite and canvas to Kansas City so that Arthur could just keep working. And I don't know what else to say except for, does anyone have any questions?
So Megan, I'll jump in with a question because I know some other people may be shy, but you had said that there were 3 events that inspired you to be an artist, and one of them was your relationship with Arthur Kraft. What were the other 2 events?
Oh, well, first, I used to look in my parents' library in their house, and I found a Murrow book one day. And I repeatedly would go into the library and take the Murrow book and take it into my bedroom and get under a blanket and look through it and think, I want to make art like this someday. And it was just after that time that I saw the Murrow book that I met Arthur. And after I met Arthur and saw what he was doing and thinking about his blues and his, kids love rainbows and gem tones, and he was everything that I, between Murrow and Arthur's gem tones. And it was also around the very same time that my father had a big giant barn in North St. Joe, and I used to ride with him to go talk to the farmer every once in a while. And one day he was having a very long conversation with his farmer, and I went up into the hay loft of the hay barn, and I was sitting on the hay bales waiting for him to talk. And all of a sudden I saw light moving across the floor of the barn. And it was that very day that I realized that there were shadows and there was light and that shadows moved. And I absolutely couldn't believe it. And that pretty much sealed the deal for me. I thought, I have to be an artist. And I was 6. So those were the 3 things. And they all occurred when I was like 6 or 7 years old.
Megan, I know you had talked about telling the story about wanting to go visit Arthur in his studio in Kansas City. Is that something you can share with everyone, or am I calling you out here?
Sure. No, it's okay. My parents used to commission Arthur to make paintings. And this one particular time, they had commissioned him to do 2 really pretty large blue paintings, predominantly blue paintings for our family room. And again, I was like 7 years old or so. And so we used to drive down to Kansas City to Arthur's apartment to check on him and see how the paintings were coming. And one day in his apartment, I said to Arthur, oh, I want to learn to paint just like you. I want to be an artist just like you. And Arthur said, well, why don't you stay with me this week and I'll teach you how to paint. Well, that was just like the best thing that I'd ever heard in my life. And so I told my parents that I would like to stay with him and learn to paint. And my parents said no, that I had to come home, that I couldn't stay with Arthur. And so I threw to this day, probably the biggest fit I've ever thrown in my life. I screamed all the way home. I cried, I yelled. And years later, my mom said to me, she said, Megan, it wasn't that we thought that Arthur would harm you, hurt you, or anything. It's just that we thought maybe he'd forget to feed you or give you water because he's so into his painting and what he's doing that he may have forgotten to give you water. So I understood when I was older, but then I thought it was my only chance in my life to ever learn to paint.
Do you see Patrick's question over in the chat of what area of Kansas City did Arthur Kraft live in?
He usually, I would say most of the time he lived near the plaza, the Kansas City Plaza, or on the plaza. Interesting, from my father's correspondence that I have, one day I read all the letters and I wrote down all of the different addresses that I could find that Arthur lived at, because I remember going to 3 or 4 of his apartments with my father or my parents. And so I wrote down, he moved a lot. And so I wrote down all the addresses, and I called a friend who also knew Arthur when she was growing up. She's from Kansas City. And we took a drive one afternoon and we drove around to all of his apartments using the addresses from my father's letters. And we said, I remember going to this one, or she'd say, I remember going to that one. And she's a few years older than me, so she remembered visiting them when she was in college or high school. So that was really interesting. And some of the letters to my father sort of reflect like what it was like to live in some of those places and some of the problems that maybe he was having with the landlords and his dog or something. So mostly Midtown, Kansas City to Plaza, and a little bit south of the Plaza too. Any more questions?
Megan, someone was asking about whether or not they could purchase the book at the museum, and I put in the chat, and you may be able to give a little bit more information. That Sounds of Fury is a very rare book.
Yeah, The Sounds of Fury. No, it was a limited edition book. I'm not sure how many copies were made. The last I heard was that the Carter Museum in Kansas City, which is part of the community college in Midtown, that they had a few copies that they had for sale. And this has been a couple of years, so I'm not sure. But they had a few copies for sale, and the books were donated by a woman that knew Arthur for the benefit of the art gallery. So you could check with the Carter Art Museum, Carter Gallery, Carter Art Museum, I'm not sure, but that's the only place I know to buy a copy.
They're a super special book and very nice to see in person. We have one copy in the St. Joseph Museum collections, and then I know, Megan, you have a copy. I'm not sure if the Albright Kemper has a copy of that book or not. Megan Bennett could maybe let us know in the chat if they have one. But they're pretty rare to find, and I think I've seen them for sale online for $1,000+. But do you think that's about accurate? Megan, do you have any idea how your parents met Arthur Kraft?
I'm not positive, but I believe it was from the woman that I was just explaining that I drove around Kansas City with to find Arthur's apartments. Her mother was Arthur's childhood friend, went to grade school with him, and they remained friends until Arthur passed away. And my parents happened to be friends with her. And I believe that that's how they met Arthur. And my parents just, they liked him, and they loved his art, and they loved art anyway, and they just wanted to support him. And I believe that's how they met him.
Megan, somebody is asking online where the penguins are. Do you know where their location is at in Kansas City?
Yes, they're on the Country Club Plaza. I think the name of the street is J.C. Nichols Parkway. And there used to be, where they're located, it's called the Court of Penguins. It's actually a little court. And across used to be where the theaters were. And it's next to J. Crew and Anthropology. It's in that section, I would say, like the west side of the plaza. And it's really wonderful because at Christmas time, they dress them up with wreaths around their necks, and they're very celebrated on the plaza, and they're beautiful. And it makes me wonder, what in the world does a 10-ton elephant look like in Cleveland? I'd like to drive there and see it. It must be huge.
Megan, out of all of the work that you've seen of Arthur Kraft's, what's your favorite piece?
I don't know. I don't think that I can choose, because I love his sketches so much because they're so alive, but I love his paintings so much because of the gem tones. But I also love his blues because I've never before in my life seen an artist that could create so many blues so successfully. And I like to look at Arthur's paintings and look at what color looks like next to another color, because he seems to, like I said, his colors. He shows the feeling of a color, not just like here's blue, here's red. His colors have feelings. So I don't think that I can choose. I'm sorry. You know, and another thing is Arthur's stained glass. We had hoped to have a piece of his stained glass in the exhibit, but unfortunately it was involved in a fire, and so we weren't able to have it. But Arthur was very talented at stained glass, and he had his own style with it. Most of it was created from big chunks of colorful glass. And, you know, I'm thinking about some of Arthur's times where he sold a lot of work. He was going along fine, but he was very generous with his time and his money and his art. And so he would help people that needed help with the money that he had. And there's a church in Kansas City, and I'd like to find it, where I know that he spent 2 years creating a beautiful stained glass window for them, and he never charged them a penny. And so he was multifaceted, and there's lots about him that hasn't been shown or uncovered yet. And people are really finally becoming interested in him for good reason.
So if anyone else has any questions for Megan, you can type them in the chat. Megan, do you happen to have the one slip of paper that was at the end of the Sounds of Fury book that he had written?
Yes.
I think it might be nice would you mind reading that to close us out?
No, I love this. Thank you. This is what it looks like. And this is just a little slip of paper that he had in the back of the book, like Sarah said. Thank you, dear thing. I cannot call you human or animal or rock or leaf or element. I can call you universe. You have created us as angels. We are your angels. You have equipped us with all that is necessary to understand, but somehow we do not understand. We have tried. Memory is a blessed quality. You have given us everything to make this whisper in time a perfect paradise. Truly, the forces for bad are as strong as those for good. It revolves around such a simple emotion known as love and laughter and whimsy, but the most important one of these is love. Arthur Kraft, 1971.
I love that quote, and we have copies of that around in the exhibit as well. Thank you, Megan, for joining us, and for everybody in our audience for joining us today. We really love having the exhibit, and Megan did some fantastic work, as well as the staff of the St. Joseph Museums, curating that exhibit. And we were grateful to have some loans from some private collectors, as well as the Albrecht Kemper Museum of Art. As Megan said, it's going to be here into July. And so we would love to have people come out and visit it. It's a beautiful exhibit and really showcases some of Arthur's technique, as well as his thoughts while he was a patient here at the state hospital. I think Megan alluded to it at the very beginning, but Arthur Kraft was a complicated human being who had suffered probably a lot of joy, but also a lot of trauma in his life. And I think that comes through in his painting and his artwork, and certainly in his Sounds of Fury book, you can sense his empathy that he had for the patients at the state hospital, and how he was able to relate to them. So we hope that you will come visit us. We are open at our Frederick Avenue site every day from 10 to 4. The exhibit is open. And so hopefully you will come visit us. And thank you, Megan, so much for your time and talent. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And if you guys have questions, you can stay and ask them of Megan or put them in the chat. We'll be on for a few more minutes, but thank you all.